Sure.
Football season! COVID! Got things going on the team! Trey Jones, James and Guest, making it happen! October, Q4, it's all happening! Welcome to the GovCast! Woo!
Welcome back, Jack. Great to have you.
I made it through the storm. I'm back. I don't recommend anyone ever drive I-10 to Texas. It's good to about Louisiana, and then there you go. There's a baby in there now. You got officially a grandfather. Pop. Yeah, you're good. I-10. If you're heading, west from Florida, it's all good till you get to about the middle of Louisiana. One, they've had hurricanes come through there, but then the road just disintegrates, and they put up. They have barriers. It's fine where there's construction. But for some reason, I guess in Louisiana and Texas, they figure you're a mint driver, and they put the concrete barrier like right on the line. So there's no wiggle room. And I get nervous. The truck's next door, and I'm like,
oh my gosh.
I'm like this.
Did you drive back all by yourself?
No, I had the whole family, the whole crew, mother-in-law, wife. It's a mess.
A lot of girls back.
It was a lot. I feel very emasculated at this point. It was a tough 19 hours there, 17 back. Crazy. It was crazy stuff. But I lived through it. It's all good.
You're here.
Sun is good. Don't recommend driving to I-10. So, Dre, tell everybody you're here. You got your thing going. I'm taking the football stuff off. I got to go. Let's go. Do your thing.
Hey, Andrea, nice to meet you. If this is your first time tuning in, but for everybody who's been on here before, good to see you. Happy Tuesday.
Yes. And Dean, Stephen Bryant's all dressed up. Got the gear on.
Hello there. Close up. I love it. Stephen Bryan, the Dean of GovSales University here. I will not be here Thursday, though. I'm going to head through the Smoky Mountains and see the leaves change. Something we don't get down here in Florida, so I can enjoy a little fall season. So.
Steven's going on his 19th vacation this year. So if you need a job, just come to GovSpend. We have a very, very liberal PTO policy. Well, I don't know about GovSpend. GovSales University does. Clearly, if you're the dean of GovSales University, you get a lot of time off. So.
Good work-life balance over here at GSU.
19th vacay must be nice. We
work us really hard. Sometimes we need a vacation.
Is that what it is? Steven's got a lot of vacation. And then look, somebody else I think is going to Mexico. Must be nice. I was out of here, but it was not relaxing.
You were in Texas enjoying I-10. You had a great vacation.
I did eat some food. You can't knock Texas. You're going to Rudy's. In-N-Out Burger is there now. So
what's Rudy's? Barbecue
place, yeah. Like you just go in there, old school, slice it. They throw it on a piece of just a piece of brown paper, give you a tray, and say, "Go eat it." Like
that sounds good.
Right, that's all you get. Highly recommend Rudy's if you're in the Texas area. Super good. If you grew up in Maryland, like when they throw crabs on a brown paper bag, it's what they do. They just cut it all up: turkey, beef, sausage. Throw on a tray and throw it at you, kind of like an animal. You're like, wow.
Sounds like a vegetarian's dream.
No, not a vegetarian. If you're vegetarian, don't go to Texas. If you're
no vegan options.
You're in the wrong state, wrong time. So today we're really blessed. We're gonna have a guest, James Bowden, right? Right? Director of Outbound View, right? And host of the Lunch Break podcast. He'll be here in just a little bit. Talk about sales training, his background, inside sales, helping folks build your funnel. So he'll be here in just a little bit. And then if you followed our show, one of the things we're in the middle of right now is we have this thing we put out, this content piece about the 10 myths of selling to the government. And so I think Stephen and Andrea handled the first 3. So today we're going to do myth number 4. And so we'll work our way through the 10 myths. Number 4. So today's 4th myth about selling to the government. The 4th myth, if you hear things about selling to the government, hey, your company needs to be on GSA or state contract to win government business. So you need to be right. Oh, that was speaker. I knew that was.
I mean,
what did you say here over the bar?
You want to hit it again? We're 2 for 2. You want to do it again? Because
What's the myth, Jay? Is that,
we
is that
went
true
from
or
like
false?
we went from like a beaker. Look, we went from like a beaker over the shoulder to a beaker fly-in to now a whole beaker video. So funny.
So that was false for those who
It
don't want it.
100% false, right? You do not need to be on a GSA schedule or a state contract to win government business, right? That is one of the mechanisms to expedite the process, right? If you work with a government agency and you can get your product on a GSA schedule or a state contract, they can typically buy it quicker, but you don't need to be on the GSA schedule or on any of the 50 state contracts. You do not need to be on any of them, right? And the process to get on there can be lengthy. And the last thing, and then I'll share it to Andrea and Stephen, it's like just because you're on the GSA schedule also doesn't mean, or a state contract doesn't mean you're getting any business. So sometimes folks are like, I spent 6 months getting on the GSA schedule. The deals are just come rolling in, and it just does not work that way, right, Dre? So why don't you guys share kind of your experience working with the GSA schedule?
Okay, so the way I explain it to my folks, because I have some companies I work with that they're like, oh, so we're on the GSA, we don't need you. I'm like, oh, well, you probably still do, right? Because GSA is only about 5% of everything that the government buys, and it only applies to federal. So it might help you by being on this catalog, right? It's going to be a little bit easier. It might slow down the sales cycle, but in reality, it's not going to show you everything out there, and it's just one method that they can buy. So, I mean, again, if you want to work with federal agencies, you can get on there. It's not the end all be all.
Yeah, and I think once you're on the schedule for our audience, like then an agency can go right to the schedule, right to state contract, and buy your item. But it doesn't. You still have to do all the sales work. You still have to go through all the process. Just because you're on GSA schedule, folks feel like, oh, I'm on state schedule, all these deals will come raining down, right? And it's not the case. You still have to go through all the sales process. The GSA schedule or the state schedule makes the mechanism to get the PO just faster, which that part's great. But there is no there's no procurement people going, let me scan down GSA schedule. What do I want to order today, right? It just doesn't work that way. So.
Yeah, it's a great point, Jack. You have to develop the relationships first, and you have to let people know who you are and what you do. And once you have that relationship built and, you can fill a need, whatever product and service you have, then you say, oh, well, it's really easy to buy for me. I'm on the GSA schedule. And that's really like the end part. I always, relate it to being on the shelf at the grocery store. If you're going down the aisle and you're picking up cereal and you have to buy Cocoa Puffs or Lucky Charms, it's like, well, which one do you get, right? You go which one that marketed to you, whatever your kid was watching that morning.
Always get Fruity Pebbles.
Or Fruity Pebbles. That's a great choice too. Golden Grams, Cocoa Puffs. I could go on for days, but
vegan, Dre, vegan stuff right there. No meat.
I'm not actually vegan. I eat all meat.
But you have to tell people. So that's why they advertise commercials during the cartoons to the kids. So when they're walking down the aisle, like, Mom, give me those Lucky Charms. Give me those Lucky Charms.
Fruity Pebbles, dang it.
Exactly. So you have to call up the agencies, talk to the buyers, the purchasing, the directors, everybody involved, and let them know who you are. And then at the end, it's like, oh, here you go. Buy my product. It's on the GSA schedule.
Amen. Yeah, if anybody's new to the government sales process, don't encourage you to start there. It is a means to an end. Once you have some government business, you have some relationships, the GSA schedule or the state contract can definitely expedite the process. But don't encourage anybody. If somebody calls you and says, I'll get you on the GSA schedule, give me 5, 6, 7, 10 grand. I'll get you all set up on your state schedule, which every state has kind of their own schedule, or the GSA schedule, which is the federal version of that, right? Do not do that if you're just starting, because again, it can take a long time. It can be costly. And it doesn't really mean you're getting any business at all. And it's just, again, it's kind of a mechanism to help it be faster. But please, please, please do not start there. So when folks tell you, oh, you can't win business, it's on the GSA schedule, as Jerry mentioned, that's not even the majority or close to a majority of what the government spends anyway. It's just one of the tools that can be helpful, but certainly is not a limiter. So please don't fall victim to that myth where, oh, you're not on the schedule, you're not on the state schedule, you're not on GSA contract, you can't win government business. Completely.
Can't get enough of the bomb. But one other tip to that, Jack, because a lot of people go through it, and state schedules as well, is look for someone that already holds a contract and see if you can partner up with them, maybe through like a reseller agreement, because maybe it helps you get a 1 or 2 deal. But that's a great way to test the waters, someone that holds it. And if they can list you on their schedule as a line on, you have to create a SKU or a product number. That way they can buy through the schedule. You might have to give a percentage, of course, to the vendor that holds the contract. But that way you can see how it works. And then you can jump into the journey of, 6 months to a year to get on that contract.
Yeah. One last analogy I'll give you, like in the world of government sales, this would be like once you're a sophomore or a junior, if you're in the high school or college way. Once you start, I wouldn't start there if you're a freshman and selling to the government. But once you've got a pipeline and you know the process, then I'd add the GSA or state schedule as a nice little add-on once you're in it. Good?
Let's meet James.
Yes. So we'd love to bring our guest on, James Bowden. So
Ball with the ball.
Director of Outbound View. Yes, James, thanks for being here today.
Super excited to be here with all of you, the brains, the dean, the host.
A lot. You want to redo your title? What do you want to go with today? What do you got?
I mean, the guest. Let's just keep it simple, right?
There you go. That is super simple. Great. James, can you tell our audience about your background? And hey, look at that is a response.
Dreams come true around here.
Whoa. The GovCast team's making it happen today.
Amazing.
James, do you want to tell our audience your background, how we got connected, what you're doing, big things?
Yeah. So I have been in sales for about 12 years now. I started selling in 2008, right at the beginning of the last recession. So it was a fantastic time to graduate college and get into the selling world. I spent the first 4 or 5 years of my career in retail. So I sold cell phones. I started selling cell phones at a kiosk in the middle of a mall, and did that for a few years, really cut my teeth and figured out sales was something that I was interested in and developed a passion for it and got really into kind of the personal development side of things. And that led me to just wanting to grow, right? So I got into B2B sales, inside sales, and from there, tried a few different things in inside sales, was an inside sales leader, was a recruiter, and then stumbled on the world of sales development at the ripe old age of 28, which is old to be a SDR, a sales development rep. Typically, they're fresh out of college. So for me, it was an interesting experience. The person that hired me was 3 years younger than I was, and he was my boss. And so it was just a very unique experience, but I fell in love with sales development. I had been a full cycle inside sales rep, and there were parts of it that I just really wasn't enjoying. And sales development was all of the things that I loved about sales. And so have spent the last 3 or 4 years just solely focused on sales development. I've helped build some teams, and now have the pleasure of working at Outbound View, where we help clients try and crack the code on outbound. So I get to talk outbound sales all day, every day. It's a blast.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like not a lot of folks love that part of it, right? In the sales world, appreciate you sharing, by the way, because it is, folks have this thing, they get into sales and everyone sees the money. A lot of folks see the money, then they're like, I want the end. Give me the end piece. And very few people want to kind of do the process to learn and take it in. And we do that at our company. We bring everybody in no matter their experience. We try to always start them in the kind of the SDR world, just so they learn the process and have them grow. And so I think that's so important. And I think for our audience, it's really talking about whether you're in private industry or the government, how do you build your pipeline, right? What are those things you can do to help grow your business and grow your pipeline? And we all see the sales at the end, but that doesn't happen without all of the front end stuff. So that's really what, James and his team does. So maybe can you tell folks about Outbound View and, what you do and what the company does and how you help folks kind of start that process?
Yeah. So I think, at a certain level, looking at outbound and thinking about inside sales specifically, there are some key foundational points and pillars that everybody can kind of start with and needs to be thinking about, regardless of the industry or who you're selling to. And it really kind of starts with some pretty boring stuff like lists, data, right? Contact data. One thing that we harp on here at Outbound View, and it's a way that we help our clients is list validation, list building, list cleansing, because now more than ever, great data is really, without that, you're kind of setting yourself up for a disaster for the rest of, no matter what you set up, right?
Preach.
So that's the first layer, right? And the wonderful part is, I think about this and laugh about this. The movie Glengarry Glen Ross. That the whole plot of that movie was about leads.
Yeah,
not and they steak knives.
no, or coffee.
The leads, I got them down here in my drawer. I tell my team all the time, the good leads for the good folks down here in my drawer.
Yeah, so that was the whole plot, right? It was, we want the good leads. Where are the good leads? We don't have the leads. Now, salespeople, I mean, if you went on LinkedIn right now and said, can anybody find me leads? Your inbox would be blown up with every vendor and every person that has leads to give you, right? And so there's not a lack of source, right? But I think oftentimes there's a lack of, recognition of the importance of taking the time to use all of the different data vendors, but take a deeper step, a step further, and do some validation, right? Do you want your inside sales team being the ones to find out that, 7% of every list is typically bad numbers? Do you want them spend? I mean, and that's the reality for, a lot of folks at the front of the, top of the funnel. You're spending a lot of time figuring out, oh, wrong number, not there, wrong person. So if you can do some of that work, and there's, it's a service that folks like us here at Outbound View provide. There's sales operations folks that you could probably get involved if you're, mature enough in that sense to help with some of those list validation things. And that's really just so key for us, because that if you have great data and you feel confident about it, you can build some things on top of it. So I'd start there.
That's so true. It's so amazing. Dre.
So I got one. So you seem like you've worked with a bunch of different salespeople throughout your career. So what would you say if you had to name like the top 3, let's say, qualities that you see in the top folks that you have met throughout your career?
So for sales development, specifically top of funnel work, I think the first characteristic would be anti-fragility. So just the ability to show up every day and just take a beating, kind of, just the hang-ups, the spending time on
I've never
writing
heard it say
emails.
That way. Anti-fragility, though.
Tough skin.
Say that.
Yeah, I know. I practiced that before we got on here. But so, that is absolutely paramount, I think, because it just helps you stay in the middle, right? You're not getting so wrapped up in some of the less than lovely parts about working at the top of the funnel. And then the second would be coachability, right? I think, and that goes for folks that I've worked with that have been doing it for 20 years. They're still asking for, please tell me how I can improve. Please coach me. They're seeking it. So though, that kind of thing. And then the ability, this third part really, it's the ability to hear and take in information about a company, right? And then easily distill it down to like a 3rd grade level and say it back to somebody, right? So if I explain what my company does, a great sales development top of funnel person, even if it's business intelligence, analytics, big data science, something, right? Something that I could make sound very complicated, they're going to be able to listen to it, maybe ask a few questions, and then say it back to me in a very simple way that explains how they help, who they help, and why they're reaching out, right? I think
you need a new word. Look, you got to come with a good anti-fragility. You need a good word for the
there's no real, a good synthesizer of information, maybe.
Yeah. There you go.
A lot of big words today.
Yeah, I came with the vocab.
New words.
No, that's good. So just thinking through the process, sticking with the top of funnel there, James, is when, I don't know if there's like a magic thing, but when you're trying to get appointments, right? We're always asking, hey, can we get 5-10 minutes of your time? When you're trying to actually just secure that meeting, because that's the most important part, right? It's just getting that person that actually makes the decisions to talk with you. What are some, I don't know if you have like script or one-liners or something to help you secure that meeting? Because I think that's where a lot of people struggle. They know their product, they know their business, and they can talk about it, but just getting that appointment for someone to listen, that's where that little fine art comes into play. So do you have any tips for the audience about how to secure that little window of airtime?
Yeah, I think, what's ironic to me is that we talk a lot about being value-driven and relationship-based selling nowadays. But at the same time, we're sending emails. The first email we're sending out is asking for 15 minutes on somebody's calendar. Those two things don't really seem to go hand in hand to me. Because and so what I mean by that is, if you're of the mindset of I want to take my time to maybe set up 8 to 10 to 12 touch sequence, right? Where I can ask for a meeting maybe down the line, that first note can just simply be, does any of this sound interesting to you? Right? So all the things all the ways you can help, instead of a call to action saying, do you have 15 minutes to learn how we can help, or whatever your normal call to action is, just dial it back a bit and just say, does any of this sound remotely interesting at all? If so, shoot me back a note. I can send you some more information. Or if not, feel free to, tell me to buzz off. I mean, and speaking like that is great. The more direct you can be, the better, right? So I think just taking the foot off the gas pedal a little bit on those first couple of messages, just to test the temperature of who you're dealing with, right? Because they very well may be not the right person. It may be somebody else's department. I mean, who knows, right? Every company's different, organized differently. So.
So for I guess a person's own sanity, right? So you say, hey, find quantifiable data, right? You have your targeted list.
Yep.
What's a good response rate on those type of emails for the soft sell? I would say, like, hey, this is who I am. Let me know if you're interested. Not give me 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Response rates are largely dependent on this equation that we work with at the top of the funnel, which is really just your target, your message, your channel, and your timing, right? So those 4 things are the kind of things that we're constantly thinking about when we're working at the top of the funnel. So your target, who are you reaching out to? Your message, what are you saying to them? The channel, where are you doing it? Email, phone, social, and then the timing, right? Yeah. The first 3 are all ones that we can control.
Exactly. I was gonna say you can't control timing. That's the
so we'll leave that one out. That one's the one that makes salespeople, right? Because we have to deal with that. The first 3, that's where you can get strategic, right? And so if you're narrowed in on your target, that because we've done business in the past, or because we have so much data, we know this is the right person. Mm-hmm. That way we know we can craft a message that's the right message to the right person. And then, the channel, you can hopefully you're running an omni-channel thing where you're doing email and phone and testing that part. But I think if you've got those first 2 parts, the target and the message, we've seen open rates skyrocket, right? Because if you're a company that sells video equipment, and that the person that buys the video equipment at the companies you're reaching out to is the AV specialist, and you send the AV specialist an email with the subject line, need new cameras, that subject line is going to be crazy open rate compared to, something where you don't have those things nailed down, right? Yeah. So there's lots of context that goes into it. Mm-hmm. Average cold rates, sub 5%, sub 10% on response rates. Okay. It's just a reality of it. Cold anything is rough, but you can definitely turn the odds in your favor if you're more narrowed in on that formula, right? The target, the message, and the channel.
Yeah, it's great. I wrote that down. Thank you.
Oh, must be a keeper if you wrote it down. I love this. Well, James, I love look. I think you just had probably many sales folks turn over in their grave when you're like, not asked for the demo or the sale in the first message, right? I love that. We talk to I talk to our folks all the time about, the person that really gets things that get folks' attention are always 180 degrees from everything you hear every day, right? And so that thing alone, just being able to have the patience and the fortitude to not ask for the deal or the demo in your first communication is such a huge little tip, right? It's so disarming.
It's a pattern interrupt.
Totally. It's so great. It's such a man, this person's not desperate. They're respecting my time. I don't have to so I love that. I love hey, here's my thing. Does this remotely tweak your interest? That is love that tip.
Yeah, I think the problem people run into with that, just to wrap that piece up, is you got to make sure that you follow up. Right. People love to send the first email, right? I think that's why we put the CTA in the first email. It's so easy to set up the first one and send it to 500 people, but managing the follow-up, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, narrowing in on who's opening, who's clicking, those kind of things that takes work. So
there's nothing better. There's nothing better than going into your CRM and seeing a salesperson with 500 follow-up tasks they've not done.
I've been there. I've been there. Yep. I've been that person for sure.
As a manager, you love it. Hey, let's look through your work product. You're like, oh, I only have 900 follow-up tasks. You're like, oh, that's good. That's good. Sure, that's going to go great.
Yep. Now this field means nothing in the CRM.
Right. That's right. You're 900. Oh, I missed that person. And then I love, look, as a person who runs a sales team, I love when somebody else closes a deal and then the person goes, hold on, it's in my follow-ups. Oh, I was going to call them next month. I'm like, dude. Just go back.
Or 6 months overdue, right? I was working on that. It's like 6 months overdue.
I had one of those the other day. I'm like, so funny. James, can you share more about what does that look like? The phrase you use, kind of the top of the funnel, and I think honestly, that's where most sales folks hate. I think in my experience, sales are like, give me a couple good leads, I'll go crush it. I'll hit quota. Just get me down. But all the magic is at the top, right? And so, can you share some more about either your firm or your personal beliefs about, hey, what happens at the top of the funnel? Like, how do folks both get more peaceful with it? Are there some tips and tricks about how to, approach it? How do they find more peacefulness in it without trying to get away from it? I think most sales reps, again, especially if you've been in your job 2 or 3 years, you're like, I just want to get away from that part. I want to get away from the prospecting piece. Just give me the warm lead and watch me do my thing. And it's like, no, we don't. Like I say that to my reps all the time. I'm like, nope, everyone feels that way. Everyone feels like, you give me 10 good leads, I'm closing 7 of them. You're like, okay, but we're all that way. So do you have any thoughts, feedbacks, tips for the top of the funnel, that process, what you see, what companies are doing, your best feedback?
Yeah. I mean, look, it's tough work. It's not oftentimes work that everybody's too excited to do.
Yes.
And I think a large part of that is that oftentimes they're not really enabled to do it well, right? So the data is an issue, right? Finding good quality data, if you're not being enabled by your company, your leadership, you're out on an island. That's really tough. Who wants to call a list that is going to be 20% bad numbers, right? That's going to demotivate you and make you want to run away from the phone even more, right? Than the fact that if you were to actually pick it up, you'll probably get hung up on, right? I mean, so way before anybody ever picks up the phone, it's, working for a company who understands that if we're going to ask our people to do this hard work, we need to enable them in a way that makes it as easy as possible for them to get started, get in, document what they're doing, and then get out and be done with it, right?
Yep.
Running here, here at Outbound View, we have several different inside salespeople that work across several different clients in a day, right? And so we have to have systems that are easy to use. You can quickly get things done. There's no bottlenecks to process. Because if you can eliminate that, then a person that wakes up and it is motivated isn't going to be, by the time they get around to getting the list on the CRM and the dialer pulled up and everything lined in, in the stars align, it's 12 o'clock and they're hungry. And it's like, I'm going to do this tomorrow. I mean, I've been there. I've worked for places where I've been in that situation. And so, obviously it's going to be tough. If you are in that situation, I would say, the more simple and rudimentary, like become a spreadsheet salesperson, right? Just create a list. There are free tools. If you're really committed to doing it, you can do it kind of guerrilla style on your own. You probably need to go look for a better place that's going to enable you better. But if you're, if you're at a place where you have these tools and all of those things are in place, then that doesn't mean you're going to want to pick up the phone. I mean, I'm aware of that, right?
Yeah.
I make cold calls still weekly, and I'm like, I really don't want to do this right now. You know what I mean? And I know how it's going to go, and I know it's all going to be okay. One of the biggest things you can do when you're working at the top of the funnel, and this doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what you're doing, who you're selling to, what you're selling, just detach from the outcomes. Just completely, hey, I'm going to go out, and if I get a meeting, I get a meeting. If I talk to somebody who's interested in 6 months, they're interested in 6 months, right? The act of doing it consistently right? Just the prospecting, the calling, the emailing. If you just detach from the outcome, if you do it long enough, it snowball effects.
Yep.
Totally.
You start to see things happen, and then, you're on a roll, right? So I think that's probably the best advice I can give at a really high level, that'll help people out, because it's not fun. But if you can get away from, oh man, I didn't get a meeting, or because we're all competitive, we all want to win, right? But the win is like showing up and just doing the work.
Ah, amen. Look, you're like, hey, Billy, it's 1:00. You haven't made a call yet. I'm just about to. I'm just getting my stuff organized. I'm about to crush it. You're like, it's 1:00. It's 1:00. You know what I mean? It's like that happens, and you're like, I hate this call. Everybody hates making that call.
It's the late afternoon.
Right.
You've got 75 left. It's like, oh man, and then you're not doing good work anyway. Right.
Not in our company. People love 5 to 7 where we are. I love 5. People just keep it rolling, right, Trey? 5 to 7 prime time for us. Go.
So something that a lot of our reps have been having good luck with or having success with is prospecting through LinkedIn and then doing a lot of outreach, right? So direct messages. What are your thoughts on LinkedIn? And then if you like it, what are a couple tips that you have for our folks just in terms of reaching these people?
Yeah, LinkedIn's great. I think LinkedIn, hey, I wouldn't be here talking to you folks if it wasn't for LinkedIn. So I think for salespeople in general, it's great. Obviously, I've worked in industries where my ICP, my target prospect, wasn't really active on LinkedIn. So, there are going to be cases and, okay, maybe it's not going to be useful to sell, and that's fine. But if your prospects are on LinkedIn, it is a fantastic way to get their attention, because really top of funnel work is a mixture, in my opinion, of sales and marketing. SDR has got to have a little understanding of just how to generate some excitement, some interest, grab somebody's attention, and then be able to switch on the sales stuff when they, get them on the phone, they connect with them. So they've got to be a little bit of a hybrid. So LinkedIn is great because there are a few pattern interrupts that exist nowhere else that you can use. One being voice notes. Hello. Voice notes on LinkedIn, you pull up your phone once you're connected, right? You go to message somebody, you record a voice note, and it shows up as a blue bar in their inbox. It's a complete pattern interrupt. It is, it's amazing. And nobody's doing it. I get tons of LinkedIn, pitches a week because I have such a broad generic title. Director, I get pulled into every list. Kind of on purpose to see what's happening. And nobody's sending voice notes, native video inside the mobile app. So you pull up the mobile app, you hit the video button, and when you record it inside the app, it shows up in the message thread like it would on an iPhone in your text messages. So you just press play instead of sending a video that has a link where they have to click a link and then get brought to another page, right? So those are two really big pattern interrupts that once you're connected with folks, I've gotten the attention of some, C-level folks, people that weren't responding to calls, weren't responding to emails right away with a voice note because they're like, whoa, what is this? So it's huge.
Two great tips. Yeah, I love both.
So do you just record the voice note on your phone and then you would just copy that link into the message from your phone?
So you press the little button and it records it and you let go and you can either cancel it to re-record it or send it. And it just sends it through as a blue bar and the recipient can press play and hear your voice.
It's within the app. It's actually not a third.
It's within the thread.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I'll have to look into that. That's cool. Thanks.
I tasked for 110 today.
That's a great tip. Because when you were talking about bringing out your phone, it always makes me think of like tonality, right? When you're having a call, the first people that are ever making calls. So if you're getting into, an SDR or business development role, just put your phone next to you and click record and then dial your call.
Don't do that.
Listen,
you should do it, but it's rough. It's going to be brutal.
Don't do that unless you want to be totally You want to make
you
sure
have to really detach from some outcomes before you listen back to it. That's
bring
all.
it down, right? Turn off your type A personality.
It is very humbling, right? We all hate to hear our own voice. I think that's across everything. Anytime you hear yourself on a replay or recording, you're like, do I really sound like that?
Unless this show, I love watching the replay of this show.
Well, your mic makes you sound extra deep. I like that microphone, John. It gives that nice bass to the voice. But when you do your recording for your call, it's like you got to think about the person on the other end. Would you buy from that person, or would you, schedule a meeting with that person if you heard yourself, right? So that is what, Jack, you're saying, like very, very humbling. It's just to do that little exercise. And I remember the first time I recorded myself on the phone, it was choppy, it was weird, I wasn't confident. And the more you can just relax, be yourself, be a human. Right? Like I know you have a script in front of you. You have to say certain things and make sure you get your point across and the value of the company. You should at least give them some value.
No, throw away that script.
Yeah, just talk. Hey, what's up? What's the weather like over there? Right? So you're always trying to, get the meeting or get the sale, trying to figure out on that path. But I think the most important part is just making it fun. Make yourself relatable. And then once you can connect with that people, you're like, oh yeah, I would have a conversation with that. Just pretend you're talking to your friend on the other line, even though you don't know that person. So I didn't know if you had any tips, James, of like how to make people feel comfortable and ease, not as robotic and scripty.
Voice notes and video notes. Those are top two. Those are two of the
best
best
awesome.
we've gotten this year. Right. Those are huge.
Maybe you want to practice some of that before you do a voice note. Right. Voice note might not work if you sound bored.
Hi,
right?
James. I'm selling a CRM system.
Yeah,
You're really gonna love it. It's gonna
backfire.
help increase your sales. It's gonna be so good. It's really, will you call me back because we have the best CRM ever. Thank you very much.
You might get blocked. That might completely backfire. But it's just like, it's just the fundamentals, right? And we talk about it all the time, right? And we relate it to sports or, playing an instrument. It's just the practice, right? And the challenging part about sales is that a lot of the time, if we're all being honest with ourselves, these role plays that we do as a team, they're not real, right? We're half the group is like not wanting to do it. So they're just trying to get through as quickly as possible. The other half that may be invested in trying to get better is being too nice, or they're not saying, they're being too mean, right? It's hard to simulate live conversations with prospects, right? Yep. So, and the other challenging part is that when you're cold calling, the connect rates are typically pretty low. So you're not able to have that many conversations in, real time to practice, right? So this is where, again, take it all the way back to the boring stuff. If you're really smart about your data and you're cold calling, for example, you start to, if you're making, 100 dials a day, let's say, over the course of a month, that's quite a large number of dials, right? You start building a list of folks that pick up the phone, whether or not they said yes, they hung up, they don't want to hear, now if they've been taken off the list and do not contact, you can't call them again. But unless they say that, you build a list of people that pick up the phone, right? And then you're dealing with a list that's much more likely to generate conversations and those repetitions. And you use that list as a training list, right? And as you continue to call, you continue to add people to that list and cycle them out when they tell you to really get lost. But it gives you an opportunity to get some of that real time action in. And the challenge for a lot of teams is, it's like 1 out of every 20 dials. Well, if you start building lists of people that pick up the phone and you're documenting that, then those conversion rates go way up. Yep. So I think that's one way, because the practice is really the only way you're going to feel comfortable. It's just time over and over and over again. It's like an actor, right? They've got to rehearse and they've got to do it for real a few times before they're ready to go live or, go on film. So.
Yeah, and I think when you mention an actor or actress, they're engaging, right? No one wants to go watch a boring, horrible movie. And it's one of my pet peeves. Like, I get voicemail messages, I'm sure all of you do too, that are awful and they're dry. And so I the example I always use, I grew up in Maryland. I love the Baltimore Ravens. So anyone that researches me knows that. And I've had a couple of people be like, hey, how'd you like the game this weekend? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm so dialed in at that point. It's like a Pavlov's dog. Oh, squirrel. You know what I mean? Oh, Ravens game? What did you say? You know what I mean? And I'm so predisposed versus like everything else gets deleted. We all know this. We delete all of the emails and the voicemails, but somehow we think ours will get listened to or read. And so I would encourage everyone. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. Don't send all those things if they're boring. No one wants to read them, and you're not going to get a response. And taking a minute to know one thing about somebody and customizing it, your response rates will go through the roof, because that's what people want to hear. And then you can mix your stuff in, as Steven said later on. But starting the same BS every single time and wonder why people are hanging up on you or don't return your calls.
You're going to get 100 emails, just so you know, after this saying, go right now.
Right. Right. And they won this week, so it's good. And then they lose, it doesn't work so well. When they lose, you don't want to talk about it. You're like,
no, wait till next week.
Right. Like, let's not talk about it. Lamar's hurt. Oh, we're over. Hey, listen. So James, about Outbound View. So can you share specifically what your company does, how you work with clients, what that looks like, and if folks are interested in using your firm, how to what are those real services you offer, and what are you looking for from a client perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with clients that are typically low on the maturity scale on the inside sales side of things, right? So, and that could be sometimes early stage companies, 1 or 2, 10 to 20 employee companies, or sometimes larger companies that are just kind of now, especially more recently, having to shift to an inside sales model and haven't really had to do that, right?
That's great.
And so we do a few things. We help with the strategy side of it, the list building, right? So we meet with our clients. One of our favorite things to do when we first meet a potential client is just to brainstorm, right? And we just whiteboard together and just put all these ideas out there and really try and understand where they sit and what they've figured out on that equation that I mentioned, the target, message, channel, timing, right? And just do a little bit of an audit. The folks that work well with us and that we work well with are ones that understand that outbound is a game of many inputs and many different outputs. It's not just calls, meetings, emails, meetings. There's lots of data that happens in between those things, and lots of valuable information that you can gather depending on the level of maturity of your organization. And so we go out, we do the calling. We have fantastic inside salespeople here that are just A1.
Could folks outsource the actual calling part to your firm?
Yep, they could come to us, and we would go out there, and
everyone's ears are like, ah!
I'd probably, I'd get on the phone for you to figure some things out. So I'm on there as well. We do emails, so we set up cold emails. We send cold emails. We do for some of our clients, if it makes sense, we do some social selling, some LinkedIn outreach, and so we service our clients that way. We also are building some really cool tools to help with some list building activities, as far as finding folks on LinkedIn, and then also developing some sales training. So we've got a lot going on. All of it kind of ties into helping folks crack the code on outbound in one way or another, whether it's training your existing team, providing your existing team with data, cleansing existing data, or going out and doing the work collaboratively with a company. So all That's stuff that we love doing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so great. In the sales process, again, this is the part, the top of the funnel, you're just starting, is really the hardest part, trying to get data, gather data, who are the target markets, the right contacts. And so, having Outbound View be able to help all of our audience would be amazing. So can't recommend them enough, because that's the part that bothers everybody. Everyone's like, oh, once you narrow it down and, we're at stage 2 of our funnel, I'm good. But it is the hardest part. And so where they are playing, where their company, what James and his team is doing, is really the most difficult part. So encourage folks to reach out to them. James, how can folks reach you, your company? What are all the ways they can connect? I know you have a podcast as well. So what are all the ways folks can find you, connect with you, make big things happen?
Yeah, LinkedIn is honestly the best place to reach out to me. If you send me a voice note or a video, that would be great, because with the way things are now, I'm convinced every message I get is spam, besides Jack's, interestingly enough. So that's why I'm here.
I didn't send him a voice note, though. I'm totally doing that today. Listen, I'm going to send one of each and see how that goes. Seriously.
I love it.
Yeah.
And then, just outboundview.com. We love talking sales, geeking out about sales, as do I. I think as far as the podcast, I've hosted a podcast called the Lunch Break Podcast for about 1.5 years now. I help produce a few others, and really owe all of it to the community here on LinkedIn. So it's been a blast joining you guys. This has been a ton of fun.
It's so great. Listen, I would say for everybody that's, sometimes we have this thing like, hey, you're a salesperson, you have a good sales personality. And there really is a science to sales. There's a bunch of things that can really help you be great at what you're doing, including the data piece where we started. The data piece in today's society, it's such a great paradigm that you started with. It's like before, it was like, do I have leads? And now there's actually too many leads, right? Where can you go, whether it's Facebook or Google or all these, Zoom and all these other firms that have a ton of data. And now it's like, hey, where do I not waste my time, right? It's like, hey, how do I spend my time contacting people that are predisposed, actually be interested, whatever the heck I'm selling? So important. And we, here we focus on the government side of it, but there's so many avenues to make sure folks are talking to people that are in their wheelhouse, right? That's the key, is trying to narrow that down to folks that are predisposed to actually being interested in someone's product or service. So
that's it.
Cool. Any last words, James, you'd like to leave for the audience? Anything we missed? Any nugget of crystallization, totally how to be a millionaire overnight that you'd want to share?
I'll leave all
Steven
of that.
Tad is not good looking.
Yeah, I'll leave all of the overnight millionaire stuff to Ty Lopez and those guys.
Lamborghinis on the side.
Yeah, that they've got that figured out. What I can tell you is if you're working at the top of the funnel and you're struggling, it's been a tough year for salespeople overall, especially at the top of funnel. Don't be so hard on yourself. Detach from the outcomes. Show up every day. Do the things you do well, and everything will be fine.
Amen. Lack of fragility. I love that term. Yeah, and I think one of the things you said too, I'll let you go, but as with COVID, everything's really moved inside. And even if you were the best outside sales reps, guess what? No one wants you coming to their door because they don't know what you have, right? And so it is a
major pivot.
Yeah. Like, hey, you got to make sure the inside part's good, both with trade shows and with the sales process, right? It's all going to be virtual. That's not changing anytime soon. So I encourage you to spend some time and effort learning the science of the inside part and the prospecting part. Thank you so much, James Bowden. Appreciate it. We'll have all of his contact information will be in the comments. Appreciate your time. God bless. Continued success. What's that?
I said, nice to meet you.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
God bless. Yeah, that was great. I mean, there were so many good things there. And again, the thing at the end, everything's going inside. So even if you don't love inside, if you think, hey, I'm a face-to-face person, that's just not happening anytime soon. And his firm, that part where they really focus is the part everyone hates, right? It's just, that's, if we're super honest, it is that's the part, I don't want to do the prospecting and the thing, and it all sucks. And when we hire sales reps, we give them 5,000 leads. It's like, you get somebody 5,000 leads, you're like, where do I start? This sucks. So, anything they can do to help narrow that down and make it better. I love the voice notes. And
Me too. I can't wait not to get off this, but to tell my team after the call.
Yeah, the video notes, and I took some other notes down here about the target and the message, the channel, and the timing. It's so good. So that was super productive.
Yeah, I like the part. He's saying don't worry about the outcomes, right? Just trust the process, and that's something that if you do it day in, day out, you will see the results. You just have to continue. Not every call is going to go great, but don't take it out on the next person you call, right? You just keep a fresh, clear head and just keep doing what you do. You got this.
I think that's one of the hardest parts, right? Even working with my team, it's always I got to focus on getting X amount of demos, right? All these things. And it's okay, well, take a step back. You'll get there if you do X, but how can we get there, right? And so I think that's one of the hardest things for people to kind of detach from the outcome, like he's saying, and stop focusing on what you want to accomplish from it. How are you going to get there? And then you will get there.
I think the balance too is getting better. Sometimes people repeat crappiness over and over, and then they wait till they're in a deep depression, haven't sold anything in 2 months. Then they're like, oh, I'm suicidal. And it's no. Listen, every call you got to learn. When it goes good, break it down and why did it go good. And when it goes bad, break it down. Don't repeat the same thing. The same boring voicemail is awful, and people aren't returning voicemail because it sucks. And so getting better and watching your best people. One of the best things I heard on the LinkedIn was within 10 feet now of virtual, within 2 people in your company, somebody's doing it great. And you don't have to go reinvent the wheel within your company. Go run all the stats. who are the top 10 people.
Yep.
They already figured it out. You don't have to go recreate the wheel. Like most companies have, the 80-20 rule, the top 20% have figured it out. Go spend time with those people, buy them lunch, sit on their calls. They already know what's working. You don't have to recreate the wheel, right? They've already figured it out.
Yep.
They're crushing it. So, avail yourself to the people that are around you that already know all the good things. You don't have to, again, kind of recreate the wheel. Amen?
Agreed.
Cool. Great. So we will be back Thursday. Ian from Salesforce.com is going to be here. Their top sales rep. He was supposed to be on the show last week. And so he and I got sidetracked, both with the hurricane and traveling. So he'll be here Thursday. So we'll see you Thursday at noon. We'll be back. How to sell great enterprise, big time stuff, Salesforce. See you Thursday at noon. Thank you for your time and energy. James, doing great things. God bless.
I will not see you Thursday.
I'll